Hey, it's Drybear. The Dragonflight Season 1 Race to World First is completed. We have some class changes, some balance changes that went into effect over a week ago, and we finally have a good amount of mythic logs for Vault of the Incarnate. So today, we're going to check in on how the DPS classes are doing and how they stack up against each other. And in true Drybear fashion, I've done everything that I can to try and put all that information into one more readable, digestible output so that we can look at how the classes compare to each other. If you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Come say hi. And there she blows, Captain. So I've taken basically all the PvE encounters that all the DPS classes can be in and put them next to each other. Excluding normal raid, we have heroic raid, which typically represents the wide swath of the general population, as there aren't usually casual to casual plus players or even players that are playing regularly that get to clear all of mythic raids and get enough logs to represent themselves in mythic raiding. And we know as a raid tier comes out, usually only the cutting edge, most effective classes gets brought into mythic raiding, because then the extra percentiles matter a lot in being able to clear a boss versus not. So on screen, I have the log scores. This is their DPS output for heroic raid by spec, mythic raid by spec, and then their completion scores for mythic plus. So side by side, all in one image, you can see on the left side are the raw numbers, and the right side is all of these numbers concatenated into a single number and then stacked against each other, so you can see where the classes stand out. So let's talk about what we're looking at here. Rogues. Heroic raid, you can see that Assassination, Outlaw, and Subtlety are still at the top. In fact, when you put all of their scores together across all three types of encounters, Rogue still wins out. And this is after they did the 3% damage reduction across the board for all specs, plus the Assassination nerf, major nerf on cooldown for one of their cooldowns. So you can see that based on this, even after the changes, Rogues are still dominating, and specifically in Mythic and Mythic Plus, Outlaw and Subtlety are super strong. Assassination falls off really hard as it goes into Mythic rating, dropping down many, 5 spots on the list. And then going into Mythic Plus, Assassination is below the halfway point. So Assassination, super strong, great parser for heroic raid. In cutting edge content, Assassination falls quite harshly, but Outlaw and Subtlety still take the top. So Rogues are just pretty easily the best DPS in the game right now when you look at all content that's being completed. Now, a heroic raid, the next one that we want to look at is Unholy DK. Unholy DK did get some nice changes, and they're getting more, I believe, in the 10.0.5 update. So you're going to get some nice changes to Unholy. You can see in Mythic Raid, they are just slaughtering in damage output. They're doing okay, about average in Mythic Plus. Nothing too surprising there. And then Frost is about equally as far behind, about 5 spots behind Unholy in most content, Raid and Mythic Plus. Unholy is just doing really, really good. Enhancement for Raid, excellent. They're in the 4th spot on Mythic and Heroic, absolutely dominating. They're still holding the 4th spot right under Rogue if you use all the numbers combined into one. So actually amazing. They struggle a little bit more than their raid counterparts in Mythic Plus. Some of this is just being able to deal with trash packs or having cleave or just being able to keep up. But they still do quite well, so you can't go wrong getting an enhancement. Marksmanship, even after the big change, the nerf that they got in the last balance change, still in the top 5 for Heroic, top 5 for Mythic, top 4 for Mythic Plus. Keep in mind, if you're a marksmanship hunter, they're losing double tap into 10.0.5 unless that changes, but that is the plan right now. On their PTR patch notes, double tap is going away. They're removing it. So we'll see how that does, but even after the nerf, marksmanship still dominating. Windwalker doing exceptional in Mythic Plus. This has always been the case. They have very good on-demand damage, amazing cleave with their spirits up and their Fists of Fury. They have tons of AoE, and they can do great single target as well. In Heroic Raid, they're doing great. But when you go into Mythic Raid, Windwalker falls down quite a lot, just not being as heavily utilized as some of the other classes. Dropping down, we do see Arcane Mages as the 3rd spot for Mythic Plus. Incredible damage output. And in Heroic Raid, the Arcane Mages are doing awesome as well. With Mythic Raid, the mages are parsing quite low overall. Fire, Arcane, and Frost are all below the halfway mark. Arcane and Frost in the bottom third for Mythic Raid. Keep in mind that the world first clears had Arcane mages in them. So obviously a very strong class. One of the best you could use for Mythic Plus. But when non-world first groups are bringing mages, overall they're doing quite poorly. So you can take from that what you will. Maybe it's just a wide swath of performance, or maybe they're doing other roles besides just dealing damage. But overall, they're definitely not being picked. In Heroic Raid, Fire and Frost are down there at the very bottom. So mages still struggling. We hope to see more love for them going forward. That doesn't, push Arcane way too far ahead of everything else. Fury Warriors are amazing in Heroic Raid. I'm shocked to see this completion-wise, but Fury Warriors about average for Mythic Plus. They were much higher in the first week or two, and yet I would expect the Fury Warriors to go up as gear got better, but they've just been dropping lower and lower. Mythic Plus, Shadow Priest even beating them, which is kind of cool to see, but a little surprising. Maybe Fury just needs more gear to keep up, or maybe they just, didn't get enough going into the patch changes, or we'll just see how it grows over time. Fury, not so high in Mythic Raid in the last 2 weeks. But Arms doing decent considering where it was. Arms was at the bottom for clear and for DPS output. They did get some love. They're going to get some more love in 10.0.5. So given the fact that they came up from where they were is exciting for Arms Warriors, and there's even more stuff coming that isn't even released yet that's going to make them even better. Ret Paladins for Heroic Raid and Mythic Raid about the same. They're just above the halfway line. They're doing decent. They're doing respectable. And then in Mythic Plus, they're quite low actually for clear speed. There's a standard deviation, maybe like half of one as they drop off from the casters and from shamans, rogues. Even Devastation is lower than I thought it would be. But Ret not as favorable in Mythic Plus, but decent in Heroic and Mythic, and give you an extra battle res, which is nice. They have an immunity for some of the pulls like Senarth that you can soak up pools with. You can even do soaks for like Kurog or Council, where the Ret Paladin can take out the soak, bubble it, and then eat it, and then no one else has to take damage. Super cool stuff like that. And then from there, we can look at Havoc Demon Hunter. You can see that Havoc Demon Hunter lower in Heroic Raid, but then when you push to Mythic Plus and Mythic Raid, they're a little bit higher. That usually indicates that they have a higher skill ceiling. So as the difficulty goes higher, you expect people to be performing to a higher level. Havoc Demon Hunter is doing amazingly. They've always been good at Mythic Plus. I always call them the trash mob heroes. They're very good at clearing large swaths, big bursts. And you can see that they're above that, maybe in the top third for the overall score when you put them all together there. Elemental Shaman, kind of hovering in Raid. Heroic Raid just above the halfway line. Mythic Raid just like at the bottom of the bottom third or the top third. So doing decently. I'm kind of sad to see them on Mythic Plus lower, like about lower than halfway here. They did get some nice AoE changes going into Dragonflight, but I guess it wasn't enough to boost them up any higher than they were. They've kind of always been in this spot where they get outshined by some. It's kind of shocking to see Feral Druid above Elemental in Mythic Plus, but I guess that's just where we're at for the damage output. After that, we've got Devastation Evokers worth talking about here. I honestly, before putting these numbers together from the parses, I thought Devastation was higher than it was. So if you're a Devastation main, let me know if this is what you expected to see for their placement. So about average in Raid and Mythic, and then for Mythic Plus in the bottom third. I've seen Devastation Evokers go absolutely ham, doing tons of AoE. I'm curious to see why there's just less Devastation Evokers clearing high keys and scoring and parsing like this. It's kind of shocking. But that's where they're at. They're about average in Raid, and they're below average in Mythic Plus. Demonology Warlock came down a good bit in Raid. They used to be on launch week. They were much higher. They were, for Heroic Raid specifically, they were in like the top 6. They've dropped dramatically from that spot, about average now in Heroic Raid and Mythic Raid as people start to get gear and they start coming into their own, their classes start functioning properly. And then when you look at Mythic Plus, Demonology, a lot better. They do have some amazing AoE, the Imp Explosions, they can get some cool cooldown rotation when they pop their big pets, their tyrants. They can get some good boss damage as well, especially on tyrannical weeks, which is nice. So going into week 3, here we go. Demonology doing better, doing great in Mythic Plus, about average in both Heroic and Mythic rating. Beast Mastery Hunter. They were in the pre-patch, they were amazing in the start of the expansion. Week 1, incredible. They were doing phenomenally. Over time, now that we're into week 3, Beast Mastery has been falling hard. They're doing below average in Heroic Raid. In Mythic Raid, they're rarely brought. And then in Mythic Plus, just like Survival, they have very few parses and completions for high keys in general. So Beast Mastery has fallen. And I thought usually it takes longer for BM to fall as people get better gear. But this was pretty dramatic going into week 3. Survival at the very bottom. They're doing okay. No, they're not. They're at the very bottom for Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Plus, down with Destruction and Affliction. Affliction Warlocks are getting not terrible parses in Heroic Raid, but for the most part, we hope to see that Affliction and Destruction for Warlock get many, many, many likes and loves and thoughts and prayers going into the next big content update. Because they're struggling hard down there with the mages. Shadow Priests have been at the bottom basically since the expansion started. They've been struggling in all raid content, but as of lately, we've seen Shadow Priests start to pick up in Mythic Plus. Shadow Priests, again, just like Fury Warrior, is very gear dependent, very stat dependent. They have a lot of stat breakpoints where they start to excel. If they're below those breakpoints, they're hot garbage. So as people started to get better and better gear, they've gone through 3 different vaults, like there are 2 different vaults. They're able to clear that. They have 3 different clears for raid. Then, their eye level gets higher. They start to perform better. So Shadow Priest doing pretty well, above average in Mythic Plus, pretty low in Heroic Raid and Mythic Raid overall. So that is the DPS chart. That's where we're at for the classes and where they stand. Let me know what your spec is at on this sheet. Again, this is pulled just from logs and completion times and DPS output from Warcraft logs if you're looking for the data. But this is kind of just like a one sheet for where the classes are in all styles of content. And I hope that it's an easier way to kind of see where everything is, as there's always different ways to look at this data and ways to kind of play around with it and digest it. But this is where we're at. Hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions or comments for me on this or anything else, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. See you in the next one. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.